I divided the project up into 4 separate exhibitions over the space of a year, and I would produce the artwork for each exhibition in the 2 months between one closing and the next one opening. So I started off with Carpe Diem, Fish of the Day, because I had an awful lot of ideas involving fish, and my work is fairly surreal anyway, so if I was going to do a show about fish, it would make sense to do it in a fish restaurant. I was very fortunate. The very first place I contacted, Tanrogan, they loved it. So I went away, and for the next 2 months I sat at my desk and I painted very surreal paintings about fish. Why fish? Well, when I came up with the idea for the restaurant, I thought, well, it's not that much of a stretch to think of artwork in a restaurant anyway. But working with food, I was also very aware that, you know, I couldn't put any guts or gory things in there because people are going to be eating their dinner in front of these things. But I thought fish has a lot of miles in it, really, because you can do a lot with fish. Or rather, I thought at the beginning you could do a lot for fish, but when you actually sit down and you try and work out 20 paintings about fish, it took me to places I didn't think it would take me. I finished them a little bit ahead of schedule, so I took some samples and I showed them to Tanrogan, and they were so impressed. They also commissioned me to do 30 hand-drawn placemats that were also very surreal about fish. We got round to the preview of that. Tanrogan were fantastic. We had around about 300 people through. It was absolutely jam-packed. It was such a nice night. You know, everyone who came had a really great time. And it was brilliant. I've never seen such a diverse mix of people, and it was exactly what I wanted the project to do. I was experimenting with a different way of working. There was a lot riding on this first show, and I was so glad it went well. When I was looking for a location, I was sort of looking at larger, more club-like bar places, and I thought, well, okay, let's go for broke. Let's go for the biggest pub club thing on the island. So I went for the Courthouse. Came up with the idea of using table easels. But of course that would mean it's a very temporary show, more temporary than what the other shows were, so we could only actually do that show for one night. I decided, you know what, I'll call it One Night Stand. It's actually the basis for one of the first paintings I did in the show. It's a cycle from when you start a relationship, you then have your relationship, you have the good times, and then it all goes a bit sour and it ends. Nicola Dixon was fantastic. She was one of the people who agreed to help me hang these shows, and she's an artist herself. And she just magically just put them all out and said, right, we have got an order here. We've got a beginning, a middle and an end, and then we've got quite an optimistic end. One of the paintings I did was called Endlessly Searching, which was a lot of people's favourite. And the way we used that one last had a nice optimistic end. We hung that show on January the 17th, 2011. And everything that I've ever learned about doing exhibitions and working as an artist, everybody always says, do not put on a show that you're trying to sell in January. We put the show up, and lo and behold, the people who came to the first show, most of them came to the second show and brought a whole bunch of friends, and it was fantastic. Again, we had a massive turnout. The show was only on for one night. People loved the idea. They loved just walking around. They liked the feel of the place with the work on easels, on tables. You know, there was people who came in who were like, "Ooh, what's this?" And you know, speaking to one or two of them, it was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not really into art, but I kind of like this." So again, it did exactly what I wanted the project to do. It was in a way, it was kind of forcing art down people's throats, you know, by just putting it where they go and making them look at it and actually getting people to realise, you know what, I do quite like art. I just never go to galleries, you know. That's what I wanted to do. The third show number 3, wanted to shake things up a bit. What we wanted to do with this project was to put on a gig and an exhibition at the same time and sort of make sure that they were interlaced. And the way I did that was by taking original songs by very talented local bands and turning them into paintings. Just trying to listen to that song, conceptualize it, and sum that song up in a painting. And it was actually really difficult to do, but really rewarding as well. Something like this had never ever been attempted before. It's not even been attempted in the world as far as I know, let alone on the tiny isle. Because we did it in the Villa Arcade, you know, we had a lot of people from government come, and a lot of people were really curious, mostly just to see if it would work. And it turned out to be such a busy night. We had over 500 people through to the actual gig. What we'd done was we had a performance area right next to the art. And then we had a seating area for people who would want to sit while the music's playing. And then when there was a little gap, they'd go out and have a look at the work. But what we found was there was some people that wanted to sit, but there was some people that wanted to listen to the music while actually looking at the artwork that the music was related to. When I listened to the music, it all seemed to be taking place at night in my head. The image that I was having in my mind's eye, it all seemed to happen at night. So I devised a palette that consisted of mostly subtle blues and a nice sort of orangey sunrise sort of colour. And I stuck to that palette for that band completely. It all seemed to be from a female perspective. So obviously the figures in those images are all female. They all seem to be looking for escape in some way. So that's what those images were all about. The next band was the Anna Goldsmith band, and Anna has this amazing voice that just gets you, you know. And she has this wonderful auburn-coloured hair. So I knew the figures in this. Though I didn't want them to look like Anna, I wanted to use her palette. So I devised a palette for Anna. So it was very much, you know, a nice creamy sort of skin tone, nice auburn colour for the hair. And the backgrounds were all kind of sunset. A lot of the songs she gave me to work with were about things ending and making the next step, so it was very important to go with those kinds of colours. Then we had Simon Campbell, and he gave me two very different songs, which caused me no end of problems, but in a very good, creative way. He gave me a song called Brother, which was about somebody having just going out and being the life and soul of the party and just being fantastic. So I tried to think of colours that when I close my eyes, I think of when I'm out, and I think of lots of browns, yellows for beer colours, people just dancing, you know, and that's what came with that one. But the other song he gave me was actually quite a sad, solemn song. Both palettes I used for both paintings, though one is meaning having a good time and all that, and the other being quite sombre and a little bit sad. I kind of made it, you know, they held together pretty well, they worked, and I was very pleased with the way that happened, because I've never used the same palette to convey two completely different moods before, and I was very pleased that it worked. Then we had Christy D'haven, and anyone who knows Christy D'haven knows that she is very proud of her ginger hair. So I knew straight off, the first colour I thought of was this figure has to have ginger hair, got to. But colours wise, it's very pastel. Though her songs were the stuff I found the easiest to do, because without sounding too pretentious or anything, her songs are quite whimsical. And whimsical is the first thing most people say about my work, so it was quite easy in a way to work the whimsical nature of her songs into my style of producing paintings. A lot of the images I did for Christy did involve people with holes in them, being inside guts, because there is this sort of nice gentle flow with Christy's music, but they're often about quite visceral emotions and things like that, so it was quite nice to get to play around with that, because a lot of my previous work has involved a lot of blood and guts, and because I've been very aware that this stuff has been in the public eye, I've kind of censored myself not to include so much, so it was nice with Christy's songs just to go in and do some blood and guts, really. It was quite nice. The heights were the most different, and they gave me a very, a very interesting list of songs. I really liked them, but one song, Miffy, which is almost more like a nonsense poem than anything else. Well, it's about lead singer Sarah having flu. The only thing that makes it feel better is tissues with a little Miffy bunny on them. Obviously I couldn't paint Miffy the bunny because of copyright reasons, so I came up with an idea of doing a bunny that would, you know, say the same thing and offer comfort, but in a very surreal way. So in my image, I've got a dark-haired girl sat in the mouth of a bunny, but the bunny isn't trying to eat her. She's just quite happy there. You know, it's all quite nice. So I kept that palette. You know, I did that painting, and I kept a dark-haired girl all the way through the height stuff. Yeah, it was really interesting. It's quite a tough lot of music to try and make it all hold together, you know. And then Planes Over Paris surprised me in a great way, because 2 of the tracks they gave me were completely instrumental. There was no lyrics to them. So I literally just had to close my eyes and try and imagine what was going on in my mind's eye. And all 5 of their songs sounded very spacey. So it was very much a case of, you know, these things would definitely be taking place, if not at night, but in space. The photographer Phil Neen had taken some photos, promotional photos, a couple of years ago of the band, all wearing gas masks. And I kind of really liked that. So the character in them is wearing a spacesuit, but has a gas mask on, which confused a lot of people. But I kind of thought, actually, because the gas mask had sort of become the identity of Planes Over Paris. A lot of their band posters had this character with a gas mask on it. So I felt that for the narrative of the paintings, it would work very well. I'm also not a big fan of doing space as black or blue. So my space is always kind of greens and oranges with stars and things like that on it. So, you know, which brought across a more industrial feel, which is what Planes Over Paris have with their music anyway. So, and in the end, I ended up using one of their images for the poster because, you know, compositionally it just looked great. I was really pleased with the way it worked. It just flowed really nicely, and you know, it made people unsure what to expect. You know, it kept everyone guessing. You know, because obviously people are very used to the sort of things I paint, and you know, this figure with a gas mask on is not what I normally paint. So it's like, ooh, it's quite interesting. Let's go to that. Yeah, so all in all, bands, all of them fantastic to work with. Gigavision was a massive success, and I do hope that the Isle of Man Arts Council will consider doing something like that again, you know, working with lots of musical artists and lots of visual artists and doing something quite special, because I've proved it can work. So there's no reason why it can't be done again, I don't think. And so with the last sort of little show I wanted to do, I wanted to prove that you could just take a little room and do an art show and get lots of people to come. So I did. I just walked to an estate agent's and asked if I could use their adjoining office to put on an exhibition for a week. And that's all I've done. You know, this is where I am right now. I'm here at the 4th show, Life and Other Nonsense, which is a show that doesn't really have a context. It's all just stuff that's going on in my life and on the island and in my world right now, really. There's everything from, you know, our bizarre Manx traditions of using a turnip at Halloween. There's a painting about being kicked in the nuts. You know, it's just a mix of mad things, really. And it's gone down very well. We had quite a busy preview. We had almost 200 through to the preview. It's nice that people just come in off the street, they have a look around, they have a chat, and they go, oh, yeah, it's very different. And, you know, you've got quite a odd sense of humour, Juan, you know, but we like it, it's good. But it's nice because I get people coming in being quite inspired because they've been to some of the other shows. It's nice that they can come in and they can just have a chat and they can say how they thought things have gone. And, you know, a couple of other artists have said, oh, I'm so glad you did that show. And there's all sorts of things happening off the back of me doing this project, which is really, really, really nice. We're obviously doing the show in the museum, which is a showcase of the whole thing, which I've actually accumulated in this project 100 artworks now. I mean, this particular show, I did the whole show in a month and a week. And, you know, it's not just a deadline for me, it's a deadline for my framer, Eben Carswell at Studio 42, and he's delivered every time, so full credit to him. It'll be nice to see all 100 paintings in a row. So yeah, Welcome to the Neighbourhood has been hugely challenging from a commercial point of view, far more successful than I thought it would. So yeah, I think I'll go into strange new places for my work. I do have a couple of gallery shows coming up over the next year or so, but I can take a little bit of a break now, so that's nice.